Hey everyone, it's Ryan Mense, and it's been a while since I've sat down and done one of these photo review videos. I think the last time I did one was when I just got back from the Tetons. I was sharing my photos from that trip, and that was one of my more popular videos, so here we go again. And in this one, it's all going to be about my favorite moments in bird photography in 2020. So let's just dive right in and get started. All right, first up, we have this hooded Merganser female looking super cute on the water. And it's all black except for the lit up duck. And the way that kind of happened was, it's not all like a Photoshop trick. I'll show you the before image in a little bit. But what it was is I was shooting this at midday, actually, if you can believe it. And there's this tree that was blocking all of the sunlight except for just little pieces of filtered light coming through. And that way, when I was exposing for the duck, everything else would just be black because I'm shooting into the shadows. And if I'm only exposing for whatever's light, that means whatever's not in that direct sunlight is going to just drop out into the shadows, into the blacks. And what I also like about this photo is this little detail that kind of makes it for me is how there's 5-6 bubbles in front of her, and they all also catching a little bit of that light. And so it's kind of like this lighted pathway of like a movie theater or something like that, you know? It's just like I don't know, it's almost like stars too. It just kind of adds to this little dreamy photo, and I'm super happy about it. This is actually right when, I think this is day one of when I was doing that little experiment going from the A7R4 back to the A7R3. And then we'll look at the before. And so as you can see, all I did really was crop in a little bit and did basic correcting beyond that. Not as much as you might have expected as far as editing. I didn't like turn things black in post-processing. It was shot that way. Going over to the male, which was swimming right next to the female pretty much the entire time. It's a similar shot. I do like the female one a lot better. And I think that's just because of the black on the male just doesn't really play well with the black of the scene. Whereas what I really love about the hen too is the crest. How that's like raised up a little bit and it really catches that light. Whereas the male, the hood is down and it's not really being lit up in that same kind of spectacular fashion. And then here's the before of the male, just to give you an idea as well of where the exposure was at. I was shooting for sunlight, and so if things weren't in sunlight, they were just going to drop to black. And then next up is going to be, this is probably also in late March, and that's when the sandhill cranes finally showed up. And this was probably the second, maybe third day I was shooting the cranes. And this is actually a pretty interesting shot because it's a composite, but maybe not in the way you are thinking, because what I did was I extended the frame. I didn't really like add the bird in or do anything kind of like that. It was more that I was shooting these cranes, and you'll see in the before photo that there's actually a couple more around it. I was shooting them and I was not expecting this grass tossing, so I was not ready for it. I didn't have the right composition. I didn't give enough headspace. As you see here on the before, it's getting too close to the top there, and I didn't think that looked great when I did crop it in, how you see it in the after photo. So once I cropped it in, I felt like the top was kind of getting cut off too close to the head. Luckily, as it happened, once I saw this jump, I started to tilt up the camera to try and capture that. I was a little too slow. So as you'll see in this very next frame, which is also like a before, I did raise up the camera more, but I missed the peak of the action. And so what I did was I just combined the top of this frame, of the one where it's raised up more, I combined that with the better action photo, and in the end I wound up with this final photo where I have the headspace, I have the right action. I don't know if that's considered cheating or not. It's a composite, but you know, it's a composite to extend the frame. It's not a composite to put a bird where it wasn't or things like that. That was my favorite sandhill crane shot of the year. I just love the gesture, love the grass toss showing behavior, love the colors, love the background with the trees, looking super cool to me. All right, next up is this wood duck drake, and I'm so happy about this. I never thought I'd get a wood duck like this. They're very, very tricky to get where I live. You have to basically set up and just hope they come. And if you see them before you set up, then they've already seen you and they're taken off. You probably have to sit there for like an hour or so and hopefully things work out. But if they don't, then it was a peaceful night, I guess you could call it. But this happened at the very end of the day. This is the very last frame I think I took of this day. It was one of those days where you think nothing's gonna happen. You've been sitting there forever and you're about to pack up, but then you tell yourself that you're gonna give yourself like 5-10 more minutes, and there's the proof that things can happen when you wait for it. So these wood ducks came out of nowhere. There's a female on the right side of this frame that's cut off in the crop. I'll show you the before, where first thing you probably notice is it's much cooler. I warmed it up a lot in the final photo. I also had to bring up the shadows. I removed the stick that's coming out of the wood duck. I thought that was too distracting. Brought out the colors. Yeah, I'm just really happy. That reflection is super awesome. So the pond I was on is very small, but it's also connected to a couple other ponds. And so this duck is like sitting on one of the isthmuses that are kind of dividing these ponds. The perfect place that this wood duck could have been at this time. I was really happy because without this photo happening, I don't think I had anything else this day. When you don't get something, when it's like the peak of things going on and you have to just kind of pick and choose where you're going to be. You can't be everywhere at once getting all the birds. So you have to like pick your battles, and sometimes it's just really tough when you set up on one spot and you know that stuff is happening everywhere, because this is the time when things are starting to happen. If you get nothing on one of those days, it hurts so bad, because there was definitely going to be photos to be made elsewhere if you're not getting the photo there. So very happy that it came together this day. Here's another hooded Merganser, and I'm always a fan of shooting these. They are just the most beautiful duck. This one, if you can believe it, was shot after the previous ones, even though you see it's whiteout snow. In Wisconsin, the way it kind of works is the snow melts and then there's always like one more whiteout blizzard. So this was in like April, like mid-April probably, but it melts all in like a day or two. So it's nothing big, but it's always fun to shoot. This is a day where I kind of was able to creep up on some hooded Mergansers, which is usually impossible. It took a very long time just crawling on my belly and finally getting close enough. As you can see, or as you probably can't see, but I know, I'm not like at the water level, which I would always prefer, but I had to shoot up a little bit because, like I said, I can't approach these ducks when they are already there. So I can't get too close to the water because it would just blow my cover and they'd take off. So I do have to play it kind of cool and sit back a bit. This is shot up higher than I would normally do, but thanks to the snow being just whiteout, it didn't really matter because you can't really see the horizon or anything like that anyways to distract you. I like the suggestiveness of the snowflakes. It's not like in your face. If I shot this an hour earlier when it was still all yellow and browns and stuff in the background and that snow was coming down heavy like this, the snow would really, you'd be able to really tell how hard it's snowing, which is also kind of a cool image. I just ended up getting there a little late. So it wasn't gonna happen to me that way. However, I do like the way it's just very in your face snow, snow, snow in this photo. Here's the before. You see how much I had to crop in, and I got rid of the female because it wasn't really working out having them both. I did kind of reduce the browns in the back. I think I shot this on cloudy setting, which I usually do for my white balance, which is why this is a warm photo. And the ending one is cool because I wanted to play off that snow, give you a cool vibe. And other than that, I didn't do too much. I suppose I added some blacks in on the bird just to make it pop from all the low contrast around it. It's one of those days where you know that winter's finally over, despite what it looks like. You know it's over because you know that this is the last one. And next up we have a Virginia rail. This is definitely a favorite moment because I tried so hard to get a clean photo of a Virginia rail, and at the same time I was also trying to find Soras. This is the same habitat and I could hear them both vocalizing in the same areas. So I spent like a month trying to get photos of both of them, and this wound up being the best one of the Virginia rail. What I really had in mind was a cleaner photo of one that was more of the bird and everything. However, saying that, I do love this photo in that it is a Virginia rail photo. Like, this is what a Virginia rail is. It's just shrouded in mystery. It doesn't give you all the details and doesn't, show you the whole bird, and, it's not like a scientific photo of one, but as a habitat and all that, I think it's perfect for saying what a Virginia rail is. And then looking at the before, I didn't really change much of anything. Just cropped in, I think. Not really seeing any big changes. Probably messed with the colors just a touch. but like just very basic edits. It wasn't what I had in my mind, and I guess I'll try for that next year. Hopefully I get luckier quicker, because I spent peak Warbler season doing this instead. Once my mind gets going on something, it's hard to just like, well, I didn't get it, so we'll just go back to the Warblers now. Like, if I don't get something, I need to go until I get it. And then moving into my Sora photo, this is also, I think, like the best look I got at one. And I just love the sounds that the Virgin Rail and the Sora make. It was always like the highlight of my day when I'd pull up in my car and I could roll down my window, and usually within 5 minutes or so, I would hear either one of them. It would just pump me up to be like, all right, this is definitely worth it. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to just sit and wait for them. I'm going to find them. I'm going to photograph them. It didn't really end up working out that way, but just hearing them vocalize, it's one of the cooler bird sounds. And here's the before of the Sora. Again, I messed with the colors, or like I brought out the colors, I guess. And I believe it was probably at the end of the day, which is why the ISO is kind of jacked up and also washes out the color on the A9. So just a crop in and adjusting the colors. All right, next up we have these two killdeer, and they are trading piggyback rides. Something like that. It was actually really unexpected. So I was photographing, there were lesser, it was either lesser or greater. I think it was lesser yellow legs and these killdeer. There was, I think, like 4 or 5 killdeer in this area. And obviously I knew it was like breeding season, whatever, but I was not expecting them to actually do this like right in front of me. And as you can see, the lighting is just, everything came together and it was such a surprise. It was backlit, so you get all the round orbs in the background from the grass lighting up from behind, all the specular highlights lighting up, the nice border around the birds. In post, I would have to bring up the shadows so you can see more of the bird. You shoot for the edit in these situations usually. I knew that in post, as long as I preserve the highlights and I don't go overboard with those, then I'll just bring up the shadows, and the Sony sensors are really good at doing that. As you can see in the before photo, obviously the shadows are dark because it's being backlit and the sun is about to go down. I really brought in the warmth on this one, as I can see now. I mean, I think without seeing the before, the warmth kind of makes sense to me. It's the end of the day. That's when you expect all the grass to be warm like that. Other than that, I cropped in. I probably brought the red in their eyes too, because that's like one of the cooler features of a killdeer. All right, next up, we got the Canada Warbler spot. It's not really much about this photo. This is the Canada Warbler here, but it seems like I got 1 day and 1 shot at them per year. The year before this, I got a few shots off on 1 day, and then I saw them the next day, but I didn't get any shots off. And then this year, I waited in the same spot, and lo and behold, I knew they would come and they would be there like for 1 day. I just didn't know what day it was, so I spent like 2 or 3 days here in this spot just waiting for them. And this was my one and only look at them this year. Didn't come away with anything noteworthy, unfortunately, of my favorite Warbler. But sitting in the same spot, I did get, I think, what is my favorite photo of the year, like #1 spot of this black and white Warbler. I like the way that it's framed up with the stick and the perch, and I like that it's very simplistic in the colors. So you got the green, the browns, and you got the black and white Warbler. So it's just kind of simple in that way. You got like the character of the moss on the perch as well. How can you not love black and white Warblers? Black and white Warblers look like if someone designed a bird. It's so cool looking. It looks like it's in fashion, you know. It's just, it's one of my favorite Warblers. The Canada Warbler is my favorite, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because the black and whites are a lot more common for me that's why they dropped out of the list. I do really love the black and white Warblers. They are really spunky and curious. They usually drop down and say hi to me a few times a year. And this is my favorite photo of one, and probably my favorite photo overall of this year. And here's the before. So you see, I just kind of cropped it in. I mean, I played with the colors and did all the basic, you know, whatever. Other than that, I don't think I really touched it much. I didn't do any like crazy cloning or anything. Same spot. I also saw a Scarlet Tanager here, which I have not seen a Scarlet Tanager in like 5 years probably. It was great to be able to finally photograph one. The last time I tried to photograph one like 5 years ago, I was too slow, so I just got a red blob on my screen. So I got finally I think this is my first Scarlet Tanager photo. Here's the before. So you see I really toned it down and dropped those highlights and everything, and the vignette is kind of heavy. It's always fun like looking back on your photos after you've edited them and months have passed, and you kind of notice different things that maybe you weren't seeing during the edit or like right after the edit. If I were to do anything now, I might play with the amount of vignette that's on here, or at least do it a little better. Maybe it's fine. I'm just laughing because as I look at this photo, I'm thinking maybe chestnut-sided warblers are like one of my favorite warblers. And maybe I just love all the warblers, you know? You can't really pick a favorite. I love the chestnut-sided warblers. I'm super pumped that I got to see some nest building activity. I did find the actual nest. And so I was able to set up and kind of photograph these two warblers coming in and building it. Just a really cool experience. I know, like, looking back at it now, I really, really, really wish I set up and like did video of this, but this was like a month ahead of time of when I really got the video bug. Looking back at it, I want video of this, but I'm really happy of this photo too. I got a few different ones. This is the cleanest, I think. This is the perfect shot you can get. Just bird on a perch with some nesting material. I love the pose. I love like the little head turn, the color pop of the little flowers. I love it. There's just something about this photo that there's like things that bother me, but immediately my brain overrides and it's just like, who cares? I love it. Like that red, like vine, whatever it is in the back that kind of splits the photo in half. It kind of bugs me, but like, my brain just, like, as soon as it starts to bug me, my brain's just, you know, tells me to shut up because I love this photo. I'm really happy I got to witness this, and it was one of my favorite moments. Here's the before. I guess like most of these, I cropped in a bit, kind of took care of some highlights that were distracting. So like above the bird, you can see that there was kind of this leaf that caught a lot of highlight that I can't really tell if I cloned it or just like totally change the color on it. All right, next up we have the Cedron, and so that means we have entered into the bobolink phase. So I spent a month trying to capture bobolink photos, and I did a YouTube video on it if you want to check that one out. And this is kind of part of that whole thing where just sitting in this grass field, a lot of the times bobolinks didn't happen, so I would photograph everything else around me as well, of course. Took to noticing these Cedron, which are really cool. I haven't photographed them before, but I call them honorary members of the hummingbird family just because their little wings flap so fast, but they're still moving kind of slow, so it kind of looks like they're floating like a hummingbird, and it's just really cool to watch these things. And usually can't get this close, but once you learn their pattern of where they're going, and all birds have their patterns, and so once you figure them out with the Cedron, you can kind of just sit between their two spots. If you look at the before, it's not cropped that much. I was just kind of centering it up more. It's moving, like I said, they don't move fast, but it's still a wren, you know, it's moving fast enough where it's really relying on the Sony A9 to keep up with autofocus and everything. And I was using like the wide autofocus because I was just more focused of getting that bird in frame than having to get it in frame and worry about where it is in frame to get the focus point right. Don't want to deal with it, just leave it up to the A9. And it worked out. I love the wing position. I have another one where the wings are more flat, and that's a good photo too, but this one's the perfect one to me. I'm really happy about this photo. Cedron are not easy. Like a lot of birds, just observing them for a while, and eventually you kind of come up with a plan of the best thing you could possibly do to get the highest chances of getting a photo. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but in the case of the Cedron, it did. And here we've reached the payoff point for the whole bobolink saga. This is probably my favorite bobolink photo that I took. I took many, so it actually ended up working out. Like the first 3 weeks or whatever of trying to photograph bobolink, we're just coming up with nothing. And then finally, after all that waiting and patience, the floodgates opened and I had a very productive few days with the bobolink. And this was just kind of ended up being one of my favorites, although I do have a variety and it's a little hard to choose, but I'll just go with this one. I just love the wing position and how it's tilted towards me so you can see all the little details of the wings. The wings are a little blurred, give you that sense of motion, which is nice because there's not a lot going on in this photo. It's a very simple photo. So you just got like that blurred background, give you like a sense of the habitat. It's still textured a bit to kind of give you that sense. It's not like a full-on like one single color, which I hate in photos. So this is nice that it gives you a better sense of what's going on. I like that all the little tail feathers are just individualized. It's just all spread out. I love their characteristics. It's just one of the most beautiful birds to me. The white back and the little yellow nape, they're worth waiting for. Look at them. Look at them. And then moving into the before photo of this, I did crop it just to put the bird flying into the frame rather than having it fly out of the frame. Just looks nicer like that. And I cropped it a bit from the bottom to raising it up a bit more so that the tips of the grass weren't in frame and kind of, obviously they're distracting the way they are like this in the before. I also lightened it up and just kind of brought out details. And moving on, this is all, I think the remaining ones are going to be all from the same location really. So just this grass field because I spent a lot of time here. This is going to be a barn swallow. I'm not sure if I like this one or the one where it's flying the other way where you can see the blue back. They're both cool depending on where you're feeling that day. I might like this one a little bit more even though it doesn't have that blue. I just like the wings, how it's straight down. First of all, these guys are pretty tough to photograph in flight. And so I did crop in a bit. If you look at the before, it was like a straight on in the middle shot, which can work sometimes. I didn't think it was working for this photo, so cropped in more and made it so it was flying into the frame. The regular basic edits other than that. And then this one's going to be where the barn swallow is banking a turn into me and it's lower into the grass. So you can see that's kind of weaving itself in between the grass. It's just different. I like them both. I think I like the first one more, like I said. You know, now that I'm just like looking at it on the screen more, maybe I like this one more. I guess that's a good problem to have. Whenever I was not having much luck with the bobolink, I could always depend on the barn swallow here. It was right next to like a farm, so it's a great spot to find them if you're looking for barn swallow. I guess that's in the name, isn't it? Barn swallow. And here's the before of the second barn swallow shot. Same kind of issue that I had with the first one where the barn swallow wasn't flying into the frame. This one isn't even really centered, it's flying out of the frame. Like I said, they're tough to photograph. They're very fast and very unpredictable of what they're doing. Alright, these last images are going to be of the Northern Harriers. I got a matching set, I guess, for this female and then a male, and they're both flying directly at me. They were shot on different days, but they look very similar in their pose and everything, which is pretty cool to get like a set like that. As you can see here, it was pretty much the end of the day. The light's coming from the lower, bottom, and the side rather than, you know, the top and the side. They both have similar lighting as well. They're shot similar times a day, just different days. The difference between these two is going to be that this female Harrier is pissed, whereas the male is just more curious. I was photographing this field for the bobolink, and I thought it was very far away from the nest. But I was not far enough away for mother here to feel comfortable. So she was dive bombing me and I got out of there. No one wants to be dive bombed by something that has huge talons. I suggest you move if that starts happening to you. And here's the before, where you can see it's not centered up. I brought in the blue for the sky, and that way it plays off the golden color on the bird from the sun. It's just, it worked out to being like this photo. So this is, I think it was like 3 days later, and this is the male, and it's part of the pair. So these are like that female and this male were on the same nest. And so this one's a few days later. This one was out of curiosity though, and it kind of played out that way. So I knew these pair and I knew where the nest was and everything from doing the whole bobolink, and I would stay clear or until I thought I was staying clear and the Harrier had enough of that. So, or the female Harrier had enough of that. So a few days later, I was out doing the bobolink thing again, and this male came in. I was in a different kind of spot. It's kind of like one of those things that you can sense how you're disturbing an animal or how you're not disturbing an animal when you're around them long enough. And this one just kind of took off from its perch. It wasn't even like down in the nest or anything. Took off from its perch, looped around, flew right over me where I got the shot, and then flew off into the distance. Like it wasn't like circling me and like really, you know, getting aggravated. It just took one look at me and then flew off to go get food, because that's kind of what I figured out from watching them for so long is during this time, I always knew that the male would go get food, and then I would always see it arrive with the food later. I was just lucky enough to be, I guess, in its flight path for doing that for this shot. Everyone loves the male Northern Harriers, and so it's cool to see one just head on like this with those intense yellow eyes, and just squared up perfectly, and it just kind of happened to be in really the same position of the female. So now I got a matching set. How cool is that? It's kind of funny that it kind of matched up also at the befores where, whatever reason, they're on the side and not squared up. Since I shot the female one before, I knew I'd kind of want a similar look to the male one. The only difference is I think that was a little bit earlier in the day, so I didn't get that golden light from the sun onto the bird, so it is a little bit warmer, or a little bit cooler. I still got I brought in the blue sky more, and it's probably fine that I didn't warm it up too much on the bird, because one of the main features of the male northern harriers is how they're white and gray, so if I warm it up too much, then you kind of lose that sense. And if you can believe it, this is actually going to be it for my favorite moments in bird photography for 2020. Even though I was just saying that these are all shot in June, it's because I really got into video, and since then it's been like all video all the time. So not many bird photos being taken after this. I did shoot some for like the A7S III review and just like now and then doing different things, but most part it's been video. Just having a lot of fun with that. Being able to tell stories and, you know, show behaviors and stuff in motion. It's just a whole different aspect that I wasn't very good at before, which also kind of drives me to be better at it. Bird photography is super saturated. Why not try to, you know, better myself at bird videos where not a lot of people are doing that? Just a whole different aspect of it. It sounds like it'd be very similar, but video is a whole different beast, and it's been cool to get into. All right, everyone, thank you for joining me and letting me share these photos with you. Hopefully you like seeing the before and afters and little tidbits of information behind the scenes of shooting each one. Have a great new year. I'll see you next time.